Hi everyone, welcome to the Tropic Marin channel. I'm Sam Nietzer and we're here today at the research facilities of the University of Oldenburg in the city of Wilhelmshaven. There's videos about this facility and the research we're doing here also on this channel, so you can check them out. They're about how the facility is working, the research project, including the coral reproduction. But today I want to talk about the coral food. Corals, of course, most of them get a lot of energy from their zooxanthellae, but they're also happy about a little extra. Most corals, or let's say all corals, can be fed in addition. And yeah, today we want to look at what corals we have here, what we're feeding them, and how they react. So in the tanks here behind me, for instance, is the acros that are grown from eggs, from the spawning here in our facilities. They get, as I mentioned, most of their energy from the zooxanthellae, but they're definitely happy about a little extra. Most people have a lot of fish in their tank, or a healthy fish population. In our facility here, our fish are mainly helpers. So we have grazers for algae, we have the typical Hypatia eaters, so all the fish we have, or most of them, have a function. So we don't have a purely ornamental fish, meaning our fish stock is not as high. That also means that we have to add nitrogen and phosphorus sources for the corals to be healthy and grow and have enough nutrients in the water. We're going to do a separate video about that, because there's a lot of ways how you can add nitrogen, how you can add phosphorus to the water so your corals can grow happily. But this video is just about the coral feeding. In the facility here we have a lot of different coral species. I have to admit, I don't really know how many species we have, but it's quite a few. So we have a lot of different acroporids, we have the brooding species like the Poecilopora, Favia, we have Galaxia, and we also have corals that are depending on being fed. They have no zooxanthellae. Most of you know these kind of corals. One of them is the Tubastria, the sun coral, beautiful coral that also reproduces through brooding and releases larvae. We have them in this tank here. So right now the polyps are closed and basically waiting for some food to appear in the water. So all these are grown from larvae as well. And now we're gonna make some food, prepare the food, put it in, and see what the corals do. Alright, now we have our seafood smoothie prepared, as I like to call it. So this concoction in here is consisting of a lot of fresh stuff. So we put in clams, squid, different fish, crustaceans, algal concentrates. So basically everything that lives in the ocean, and we run it through the blender once to produce a smoothie. But aside from that, we also add other products. So for instance, the Phos Feed I use as a phosphate source, the particular phosphate. There's a separate video about the Phos Feed here on the channel that you can check out if you're interested. Zooton as a replacement for zooplankton, so it's also a very good substitution for zooplankton, not just on its own. The phyton is algae, so these are high-grade marine algae that are also very good substitution for phytoplankton. I always add the reef snow. These are biopolymers that create particles, so the food is available in different particle sizes and the corals can take whatever they want. I also add a little bit of the Lipo Garlic. It's usually or mainly used for fish, to add to the fish food, because it has high fatty acids, very high grade ingredients, and garlic also has antibacterial properties, so I always add a little bit of that. And then I have this yummy smoothie, and now we're gonna give it to the corals and see how they react. But before I put it in, I turn it off the inflow, because we have a recirculating system with water inflow and outflow all the time. So if I put in liquid food, it's going to be washed out, and I want it to stay in the tank basically. So now I just pour it into the flow You can see it's getting a bit of turbid. There's particles of all kinds of sizes in there and different ingredients, so the corals can pick and choose what they want. And now we're gonna see a reaction from them. I would say after an hour, I'm gonna turn on the water flow again. So now the Tubastria have their turn. So I put in a little bit at first to have them get the smell, because right now the polyps are all closed, they're not feeding. So they need to recognize that there's food in the water. They have really good, let's say, smell receptors and can recognize when there's prey or food items available. So they'll open up very quickly. And then we can put in more food, and because the polyps are really large and the tentacles are really, really sticky, we can also give them bigger chunks of food. So we're gonna defrost some more food and don't blend it as much to have bigger particles for them to eat, and we can feed them directly, which looks pretty cool if you put the food directly on the sticky tentacles and then they're gonna pull it in and digest it. But first we have to wait until they open up. So now we've added the food, waited a little bit. We can see that the mesenterial filaments are coming out, polyps are nicely there, and now the food particles are being collected also by the filaments. So the corals can now take up all the food they need, all the particles, different items that are in there. One benefit of feeding a mixed variety of stuff is that all the needs of the coral can be met. So the coral get a lot of energy from the zooxanthellae, but the zooxanthellae can't provide everything, meaning like highly unsaturated fatty acid. The coral needs to take up otherwise proteins, lipids, like different compounds that they cannot get from the zooxanthellae. Also certain amino acids can be acquired in this way, and that is also boosting the growth, of course. The zooxanthellae, on the other hand, they also have a benefit from the coral being fed well, because it gets more digestive products, if you will, like nitrogen compounds that then can be used by the zooxanthellae. So it's a win-win, basically. One thing that is a bit different in nature is that the corals mainly feed at night. So at night the corals usually go into feeding mode, and the apical polyps and the acroporids, they come out and everything is really fluffy and eager to eat. So I always recommend to have a look at night what the corals are doing. If they're not really opening up, then there might be something wrong. So it's worthwhile to have a look at night. And while you're looking at them at night, you can also feed them, because then they're really happy about that. Okay, so with the Tubastria, you can also feed them directly, like I'm doing right now with the bigger particles. So there's the fine particles, but also bigger chunks. And the polyps really like to be fed. They can eat fast and a lot, actually. We also did some cool macro shots, and while I'm talking right now, I believe these macro shots will be shown on your screen.
Maybe.
Yeah, so the Tubastria are depending on you to feed them, because they don't have zooxanthellae. They really rely on 100% heterotrophic feeding, as we call it, meaning catching stuff and eating it, basically. So if a colony is healthy and the corallites are connected through tissue, then they can also share nutrients, as far as I know. But if they're not being fed enough, then often the tissue between the corallites starts to retract, and once they're not connected anymore, obviously they can't share the nutrients anymore. So at that stage, then you would actually have to feed every single polyp, otherwise it will just shrink over time. One cool aspect about the Tubastria is also that they're brooding corals, meaning they don't spawn into the water column like the Acropora do, but they release fully developed larvae. And these larvae swim around in the tank and find a nice place to settle, and then you have little yellow Tubastria polyps popping up everywhere. And the more food they have, the more resources they have, the more energy, the more larvae, of course, they can produce. So a well-fed Tubastria colony can produce quite a lot of larvae, and then you have the offspring everywhere popping up. So if you feed them regularly with good food and a lot, then they can grow fairly fast. So these ones here are about 1.5 years, I would say. Some of them older, some of them a bit younger, so they can grow quite fast. So with the branching corals like the acros here, it's often the phenomenon that, of course, the circulation, the flow is not reaching every little corner, so you can get a buildup of sediments, of algal pieces, of whatever stuff in between the branches, and that can then lead to infections, to parasites starting to grow there and cause tissue loss in the corals. So you can have changing flow patterns, which of course is good, but you still have these dead corners. So in the past we would use pipettes to stir up the stuff that accumulates, but that is getting quite tedious over time, and you get a carpal tunnel syndrome from the pipetting. So what we do now since about a year is we came up with a coral shower, I call it. So I have a pump in every tank that I'm doing that in with a silicone tubing, right? And then I have quite a strong, or not super strong, but strong enough water flow that I can then go around and give the corals a shower. Showering has been proven beneficial for humans, so I believe it's also beneficial for the corals. And we have seen a decrease in issues related to sediment accumulations. So usually we do that every other day, sometimes every day. It has been proven to be quite beneficial for the corals. Of course, when the corals don't have to deal with accumulations in between the branches, they're also able to take up food better if there's nothing blocking access. Many years back we did a study on sedimentation and the impact of sedimentation on baby corals, and they were really sensitive on sedimentation. I mean, they're also really small, but still, yeah, sedimentation is something that everyone should keep in mind.
Do you also have some shampoo? Or?
Yeah, maybe in the next video.
Tropic Marin coral shampoo.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll propose that at the next meeting. All right, now we fed our corals, we have showered our corals, so corals should be happy, we should be happy. I hope the video was interesting. If it was, then please subscribe. There's going to be more videos on that channel about different coral related topics. So, well, thanks for watching and take care. Bye-bye.